Morena Tawa School whānau. Welcome to our Tawa School story time for today, the 29th of April. And today is the first day that where schools have been open. We've got 9 students here at school today, and they're happily working away in their bubble. Today for story time, for our younger kids, we're going to do a story called Mrs. Wishy Washy's Farm, and then we're going to continue on with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So first up, Mrs. Wishy Washy's Farm by well-known New Zealand author Joy Cowley. This is Mrs. Wishy Washy, and this is her farm. Here is her house, and her truck, and her barn. Here by the barn is the old tin tub where all the animals go for a scrub. Wishy washy, moo, the cow cries. I hate this old tub. I've got soap in my eyes. Wishy washy, the pig squeals. I have been scrubbed from my nose to my heels. Wishy washy, quack, the duck moans. I've got suds in my feathers and aches in my bones. The scrubbing is over. The tub goes away. No more washing, the animals say. Moo! Eee! Quack, quack, quack. Bye, Mrs. Wishy Washy. Mean old Mrs. Wishy Washy. We are leaving you and we won't be back. Fast down the highway, they run side by side. Where will they go? Where will they hide? Eee! The city, squeals the old pig. We'll go to the city where the barns are big. But the city is as wild as a farm stampede. There is nowhere to rest and nowhere to feed. The 3 hungry animals walk into a barn. There is food on the dishes, but it's not like the farm. The cow looks around with an anxious face. I think we could be in the wrong eating place. Along comes the cook with an angry shout. You'll be roast on toast if you don't get out. They run for their lives to the barn next door and find themselves in a hardware store. Oops. Then a van pulls up and 2 shakes of a tail. It's the pickup van from the animal jail. They're taken away. Oh, what bad luck for the cow and the pig and the poor old duck. They sit in a huddle, hungry and pale, in the cold, muddy cage of an animal jail. Then the unhappy cow and the pig and the duck hear the chug, chug, chugging of the old farm truck. They moo and they squeal, they quack and they cheer. It's dear Mrs. Wishy Washy. She is here. Far from the city and back on the farm, the animals run to the old red barn now. Mrs. Wishy Washy fills up the tub. Come on, you 3, you need a good scrub. Oh, bliss, says the cow, and she jumps right in. Oh, bliss, says the pig with a happy grin. Oh, bliss, says the duck, splashing in with the rest. There's no doubt about it. Home is best. Wishy washy, wishy washy. Awesome. You probably remember reading Mrs. Wishy Washy stories when you were younger as well. Awesome. All right. Chapter 18. Down the Chocolate River. Augustus Gloop has already headed up the pipe and off to the fudge room. And so now they're heading down the Chocolate River. Off we go, cried Mr. Wonka. Hurry up, everybody. Follow me to the next room. And please don't worry about Augustus Gloop. He's bound to come out in the wash. They always do. We shall have to make the next part of the journey by boat. There she comes, look. A steamy mist was rising up now from the great warm chocolate river, and out of the mist there appeared suddenly a most fantastic pink boat. It was a large open rowboat with a tall front and a tall back, like a Viking boat of old, and it was of such a shining, sparkling, glistening pink color that the whole thing looked like it was made of bright pink glass. There were many oars on either side of it, and as the boat came closer, the watchers on the riverbank could see that the oars were being pulled by masses of Oompa Loompas, at least 10 of them to each oar. This is my private yacht, cried Mr. Wonka, beaming with pleasure. I made it by hollowing out an enormous boiled sweet. Isn't she beautiful? See how she comes cutting through the river. The gleaming pink boiled sweet boat glided up the riverbank. 100 Oompa Loompas rested on their oars and stared up at the visitors. Then suddenly, for some reason best known to themselves, they all burst into shrieks of laughter. Like, what's so funny? Asked Violet Beauregard. Oh, don't worry about them, cried Mr. Wonka. They're always laughing. Excuse me, everybody. I'm trying not to sneeze. That would not be pretty. Okay, we'll carry on. Jump in the boat, all of you. Come on, hurry up. As soon as everyone was safely in, the Oompa Loompas pushed the boat down, away from the bank, and began to row swiftly downriver. Hey there, Mike TV, shouted Mr. Wonka. Please do not lick the boat with your tongue. It'll make it sticky. Daddy, said Veruca Salt, I want a boat like this. I want you to buy me a pink, bold, sweet boat, exactly like Mr. Wonka's, and I want lots of Oompa Loompas to row me about, and I want a chocolate river, and I want. Boy, she needs a good kick in the pants, whispered Grandpa Joe to Charlie. The old man was sitting in the back of the boat, and little Charlie Bucket was sitting right beside him. Charlie was holding tightly onto his grandfather's bony old hand. He was in a whirl of excitement. Everything that he had seen so far, the great chocolate river, the waterfall, the huge sucking pipes, the minty sugar meadows, the Oompa Loompas, the beautiful pink boat, and most of all, Mr. Willy Wonka himself, had been so astonishing that he began to wonder where there could possibly be any more astonishments left. There they are on the boat. Where were they going now? What were they going to see? What in the world was going to happen in the next room? Why, isn't it marvelous? Said Grandpa Joe, grinning at Charlie. Charlie nodded and smiled up at the old man. Suddenly, Mr. Wonka, who was sitting on Charlie's other side, reached down into the bottom of the boat, picked up a large mug and dipped it in the river, filled it with chocolate and handed it to Charlie. Drink this, he said. It'll do you good. You look starved to death. Then Mr. Wonka filled a second mug and gave it to Grandpa Joe. You too! You look like a skeleton. What's the matter? Hasn't there been anything to eat in your house lately? Hey, not much, said Grandpa Joe. Charlie put the mug to his lips, and as the rich, warm, creamy chocolate ran down his throat into his empty tummy, his whole body, filled from head to toe, began to tingle with pleasure, and a feeling of intense happiness spread over it. You like it? Said Mr. Wonka. Oh, it's wonderful, Charlie said. Why, it's the creamiest, loveliest chocolate I've ever tasted, said Grandpa Joe, smacking his lips. That's because it's been mixed by waterfall, Mr. Wonka said. The boat sped on down the river. The river was getting narrower, and there was some kind of a dark tunnel ahead, a great round tunnel that looked like an enormous pipe, and the river was running right into the tunnel, and so was the boat. Row on! Shouted Mr. Wonka, jumping up, waving the stick in the air. Full speed ahead! And with the Oompa Loompas roving faster than ever, the boat shot into the pitch-dark tunnel, and all the passengers screamed with excitement. Alec, how are we going to see where we're going? Shrieked Violet Beauregard. There's no knowing where we're going, cried Mr. Wonka, hooting with laughter. There's no earthly way of knowing which direction they are going. There's no knowing where we're rowing or which way the river's flowing. Not a speck of light is showing, so the danger must be growing. For the rowers keep on rowing, and they're certainly not showing any signs that they are slowing. He's gone off his rocker, shouted one of the fathers aghast, and the other parents joined in with a chorus of frightened shouting. He's crazy, he's balmy, he's nutty, he's screwy, he's batty, dippy, dotty, daffy, goofy, beany, buggy, wacky, loony. No, he's not, said Grandpa Joe. Switch on the lights, shouted Mr. Wonka, and suddenly on came the lights, and the whole tunnel was brilliantly lit up. And Charlie could see that they were indeed inside a gigantic pipe, and the great upward curving walls of the pipe were pure white and spotlessly clean. The river of chocolate was flowing very fast inside the pipe, and the Oompa Loompas were all rowing like mad, and the boat was rocketing down at a furious pace. Mr. Wonka was jumping up and down in the back of the boat and calling to the rowers to row faster and faster still. He seemed to love the sensation of whizzing through a white tunnel in a pink boat on a chocolate river, and he kept glancing at his passengers to see if they were enjoying it as much as he is. Look, Grandpa, cried Charlie. There's a door in the wall. It was a green door, and it was set into the wall of the tunnel just above the level of the river. As they flashed past, there was just enough time to read the writing on the door. Storeroom number 54, it said. All the creams, dairy cream, whipped cream, violet cream, coffee cream, pineapple cream, vanilla cream, and hair cream. Hair cream? Cried Mike TV. You don't use hair cream. Row on, shouted Mr. Wonka. There's no time to answer silly questions. They streaked past a black door. Storeroom number 71, it said, whips, all shapes and sizes. Whips, cried Veruca Salt. What on earth do you use whips for? For whipping cream, of course, said Mr. Wonka. How can you whip cream without whips? Whipped cream isn't whipped cream unless it's been whipped with whips, just as poached eggs isn't a poached egg unless it's been stolen from the woods in the dead of night. Row on, please. They passed a yellow door on which it said storeroom number 77. All the beans, cacao beans, coffee beans, jelly beans, and has-beens. Like has-beens? Cried Violet Beauregard. You're one yourself, said Mr. Wonka. There's no time for arguing. Press on, press on. But 5 seconds later, then a bright red door came into sight. He suddenly waved his gold-topped cane in the air and shouted, Stop the boat! Chapter 19. The Inventing Room, Everlasting Gobstoppers, and Hair Toffee. When Mr. Wonka stopped the boats, the Oompa Loompas jammed their oars in the river and backed water furiously. The boat stopped. The Oompa Loompas guided the boat alongside the red door. On the door it said, Inventing Room, Private, Keep Out. Mr. Wonka took a key from his pocket, leaned over the side of the boat, and put the key in the keyhole. This is the most important room in the entire factory, he said. All my most secret new inventions are cooking and simmering in here. Old Fickle Gruber would give his front teeth to be allowed inside just for 3 minutes. So would Prodnose and Slugworth and all the other rotten chocolate makers. But now listen to me. I want no messing about when you go in. No touching, no meddling, no tasting. Is that agreed? Yes, yes, the children cried. We won't touch a thing. Up to now, Mr. Wonka said, nobody else, not even an Oompa Loompa, has ever been allowed in here. He opened the door and stepped out of the boat into the room. The 4 children and their parents all scrambled after him. Don't touch, shouted Mr. Wonka, and don't knock over anything. Charlie Bucket stared around the gigantic room in which he found himself. The place was like a witch's kitchen. All about him were black metal pots, boiling and bubbling on huge stoves, and kettles were hissing and pans were sizzling, and strange iron machines were clanking and sputtering, and there were pipes running all over the ceiling and walls. The whole place was filled with smoke and steam and delicious, rich smells. Mr. Wonka himself was suddenly become even more excited than usual, and anyone who could see that this was the room he loved best of all. He was hopping about among the saucepans and the machines like a child among his Christmas presents, not knowing which thing to look at first. He sniffed the lid from a huge pot and took a sniff. Then he rushed over and dipped a finger in a barrel of sticky yellow stuff and had a taste. Then he skipped across to one of the machines and turned half a dozen knobs this way and that, and he peered anxiously through the glass doors of a gigantic oven, rubbing his hands and cackling with delight at what he saw inside. Then he ran over to another machine, a small shiny affair that kept on going. And every time it went, a large green marble dropped out of it into a basket on the floor. At least it looked like a marble. There they are in the inventing room. Everlasting gobstoppers, cried Mr. Wonka proudly. They're completely new. I'm inventing them for children who are given very little pocket money. You can put an everlasting gobstopper in your mouth and you can suck it and suck it and suck it and suck it, and it will never get any smaller. It's like gum, cried Violet Beauregard. It is not like gum, Mr. Wonka said. Gum is for chewing, and if you tried chewing one of these gobstoppers, you'd break your teeth off, and they'd never get any smaller. They'd never disappear, never. At least I don't think they do. There's one of them being tested at this very moment in the testing room next door. And Oompa Loompa is sucking it. He's been sucking it for nearly a year now without stopping, and it's still as good as ever. Now, over here, Mr. Wonka went on, skipping excitedly across the room to the opposite wall. Over here, I'm inventing a completely new line of toffees. He stopped beside a large saucepan. The saucepan was full of gooey, purplish treacle boiling and bubbling. By standing on his toes, little Charlie could just see inside. That's hair toffee, cried Mr. Wonka. You eat just one tiny little bit, and in exactly half an hour, a brand new, luscious, thick, silky, beautiful crop of hair will start growing all over the top of your head, and a moustache and a beard. A beard? Cried Veruca Salt. Who wants a beard, for heaven's sake? It would suit you very well, said Mr. Wonka, but unfortunately the mixture is not quite right. It was a bit too strong. It worked too well. I tried it on an Oompa Loompa yesterday in the testing room, and immediately a huge black beard started shooting from his chin, and the beard grew so fast that soon it was trailing all over the floor like a thick, hairy carpet. It was growing faster than he could cut it. In the end, he had to use a lawnmower to keep it in check. But I'll get the mixture right soon, and when I do, then there'll be no excuse for any little boys and girls going about with bald heads. But Mr. Wonka, cried Mike TV, the little boys and girls never do go about with... Don't argue, my dear child. Please don't argue, cried Mr. Wonka. It's such a waste of precious time. Now, over here, if you will step this way, I will show you something I am terrifically proud of. Oh, do be careful. Don't knock anything. Stand back. Chapter 20 is the Great Gum Machine, and we'll continue reading about that tomorrow. Well, everyone, have a great day. Look after yourselves. Hope you enjoy the sun, can get out of your bubbles and do a bit of walking and biking and scootering and that kind of thing. And we'll catch you again at 10 o'clock tomorrow. Thanks for hanging out. Ka kite anō.